Welcome to the Inbound Back Office Podcast, where we chat with smart agency owners about agency challenges. I'm Holly Reed, strategist at Inbound Back Office, white label plug and play staff augmentation and recruiting for your marketing agency. Today on the show, we are welcoming Beth Carr, CEO of Fortified Branding, to talk with us about how agency owners can mitigate and lessen burnout while scaling. Welcome, Beth.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, glad to have you here. I'm really excited about this topic. I don't think we've really talked a whole lot about it, but it's a massive issue when trying to scale. But before we dive into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
So I run a boutique brand strategy and messaging agency where we believe your brand was born to break the mold. And so we help visionary entrepreneurs, executives, high growth scaling businesses and teams craft powerful branding and messaging so that they can amplify their company's stories to attract their ideal clients.
And that's the goal, right? I love that. I love that. So, I mean, you deal with a lot of people who are either they have scaled or in that process of scaling, kind of moving from the growth phase to the scale phase. So I'm sure you see different variations and levels of burnout all the time.
Oh, all the time. I think, it's on social media, you think everyone's just, la, la, la,
Yeah.
great. But we don't talk enough about what's really going on under the hood. I think as leaders and CEOs of scaling companies, including mine, there are moments where you can really hit these speed bumps, feeling mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, spread too thin, etc.
Yeah. Yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, the amount of entrepreneurs like in my circle even that I see all the time, you can tell that journey of just like that kind of up and down and people trying to scale and doing all these things. And it gets to a point sometimes, right? You push so hard that you can't even see straight. And you're like, oh, I probably should have hit the brakes like a couple months ago.
Yeah, truly. Yes. Yeah.
So what are some ways that you've been able to kind of help your clients or help people mitigate and lessen burnout during that scaling process? Because it is a lot of work.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this, I'm not perfect at this, but I figured out top 5, 6 really important things that help lessen the burnout, because I, to the point where at least a goal for myself is to get to a place a year from now where there's even less presence of burnout, or maybe that's not in a vocabulary word as much anymore.
Yeah.
So I would say this I'll just say more collectively, my observation with clients that we work with, and then other leaders I speak to, and then my own experience. Here are like the top 5 or 6.
Perfect.
Getting your standard operating procedures, paperwork, all those systems written down. It may feel really tedious, but getting those, as they call it, SOPs in place is super important. It's a map that you can hand off to people you bring on, whether they're contractors or full-time, but the team that you bring on.
Yeah.
Also, it helps you figure out what are the tasks for my role, for example, the role of a designer, the role of another writer, the role of a web developer, right? And so figuring out that and then adding it to delegation is super important. A lot of clients we work with, a lot of times, because they've been in such solopreneur mode for so long, they still will take all the tasks and kind of baby their team in doling out what needs to be done. And I think what helps with delegation and these SOPs is it starts to allow the CEO to get things off your plate and get them off quickly. Yeah. I would also say, building that team. what inbound back office does is incredible, right? Because they partner with the leader to do exactly that, take things off the plate.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's worth the investment.
Right.
Because time, I believe, time freedom and time, the value of time is a bigger ROI than sometimes than the investment you're putting out in the form of revenue.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I've seen for myself, as well as these clients, is when they do that, even though it feels a little scary and maybe you're parting with more of the income that is coming in, I've noticed them all double, triple their, not only their time, but the revenue, because they are free to now focus on maybe what they do best, or the sales side of things, or the business development side of things, because they're not bogged down with these other tasks that they can give to a team that they've built around them.
Yeah, I think that's a huge deal. And I see a lot of business owners kind of going, oh, I don't have time to create the SOPs, or that's so much work. But it's like, if you really laid it out there, the amount of work they're doing by taking on all those tasks and not creating the SOPs and building that team is way more, or at least even, and they're not freeing themselves up to do the tasks that only they can do.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's spot on. And, I even did like a time, I even encourage my clients, do a time inventory of the next, write down everything that you're doing, and then look at that. So for example, when I did that, I was probably about 20 hours a week before I started to hire a team, where I was just in the weeds, the emails, the scheduling back and forth, this, that. And, so imagine what 20 extra hours, even 5 extra hours
Right.
would do when you have somebody to hand it off to. And then imagine, okay, so if I spent 5 hours or 20 hours in this week in the weeds because I'm not quite ready for the team, imagine that same amount of time that it would take you to probably write those standard operating procedures, and then you're done. You've done it.
Yeah.
And it's a living document. It's going to adjust, but at least the 99% of it is written down. And
yeah, exactly. And as you bring team members on, obviously, like you said, it's a living document and they can update it as they find more efficient ways to do things. But even then, you're not the one having to rewrite the whole thing. Like, it's there, it's the framework, and they can add to it and adjust it. It's that initial investment that I think people forget about, that if you just get it done at the beginning, even though it's one of those things that, of course, nobody loves to do, but if you just get it done, then it's not like you're doing it every day or every week.
Right. Exactly. And the last thing I'll say about that, and building teams and building the people around you, again, contractors full-time, is when you start to do that, you also feel better connected with your purpose and your mission. And if you believe in your mindset that your finances are limited and you can't afford that, then that's a whole other topic. Maybe you'll have me back, but then I say, then raise your prices. Because clearly, if you're working that hard, you're really spread too thin, then there's something else wrong, whether it's your mindset or your pricing or your strategy that is holding you back.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point. And of course, I'd love to have you back. But yeah, the mindset part of it is so crucial and is something that I love studying and learning about, because I think that half the time, or more than half the time, the reason why you don't grow or scale your business is because you limit yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
So what are some of those next steps that, or next points?
Boundaries. So it kind of goes hand in hand with this spreading yourself too thin. So, and maybe it feels hard at first, but there needs to be boundaries around, when do you start your day?
Yeah.
When do you have have your team meetings, how long are those team meetings? How do you allow your clients to get a hold of you?
That's a big one.
Right? What are your office hours? When do you not respond in an email or a voicemail or a text or a Vox or through social media, all the different ways to communicate with you? What is that? What is the time that you say that can wait? And so boundaries are huge. And when you start to carve out that time, it really starts to give you the space to think, which brings back creative thoughts and a stronger mindset.
Yeah, I love the idea of boundaries. I mean, I'm a huge proponent of them. I think they're very good for people personally and in business. And what I've seen a lot too is that the boundary that people typically don't set as business owners is the boundary of time to work on their own business. Right. It's always like, well, I have fires to put out with all my clients and, and because there's no boundaries there, they actually leave themselves in a place of constantly being the one putting out fires or working on a project instead of handing it off. And then they have no time to do business development or go do speaking events to bring in more clients or, the things that they might enjoy the most.
Yeah. And again, another thing that might feel really scary or intimidating, but once you start to do it, then you have room. For example, here, Fridays are me working on my business and or doing revenue bearing activities.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're very soft activities, right? It could be me taking care of my health, going to the doctor, running an errand, going for a walk in the woods so that I can let my imagination run, and or sitting down and writing strategy, writing new plans, trying to get the bigger picture.
Yeah. I think that's so important because your brain, just like everything else, needs time to rest. And if it doesn't get that time, it can't be creative. It can't be strategic. And because it's just kind of in fight or flight mode or freeze, right? And you can't get into this place of relaxation where creativity can come, because you can't really be creative when you're constantly like flustered.
Right. Yeah. And so that leads into exercise and taking breaks.
Yes.
So when we have physical activity, and maybe you're not a morning person, well then fine, working out in the afternoon, or maybe, a lot of our clients are women of color and queer folk, and a lot of them are doing all the shifts, right? They do their job and then they come home and they have second shift, meaning they have to make dinner and get their kids to bed. Maybe they're single parents.
Right.
So even if that physical activity is taking a really quick walk after the kids are in bed on a treadmill, or even just doing like sit-ups, push-ups, yoga stretches, right? Movement, at least for 20 to 30 minutes, really helps combat stress. The endorphins help you and your brain fire in new ways, and it actually can bring new thoughts and remove a block that you may have. And then with breaks, a lot of times when I'm working on my business, as well as during my days that can be, they're very intense. I in my calendar remind myself, stand up, take a break, take a walk. I also am fortunate enough, I have a dog. My dog comes with me to the office. So
nice.
2.5 hours, we're having to go take a little spin. But taking breaks and not staring at your screen. And when you take a break, not staring at your phone. You might need to bring your phone, but not staring at your phone. Like literally trying to get outside when the weather's nice. Eat lunch outside. Whatever it is. Really, really important, because once again, it gives these breaks for your brain to reset.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole article on the power of the pause and like the benefits of that, even doing it every hour for like 2 to 5 minutes of just like
Ooh.
kind of resetting yourself. And, and there's a lot of theories on like, you work 55 minutes and have a 5-minute break, or 45 minutes and do these sprints, and just how physiologically and mentally that helps you get more done and be more productive. I find that when I work on a lot of strategy or have to do a lot of content writing, I can't do it for very long stints of time. And so I'll plan my run right in the middle of it. And then I'm like, okay, like when I
Yes.
notice myself, like I've been staring at my computer for 10 minutes and nothing is like happening. Okay, it's time to go run. Right. And so it helps clear everything out. And I don't take my phone, I don't listen to music on runs, just because I have 2 little kids and I need a break from noise. Right. So I'm like, I don't listen to anything. And so it's just me out in nature and I love it. And I can come back, and then all these creative thoughts either happen on the run or like right after, and I can get back to it. But it's so helpful.
It really is. It really, really is. Um, and that brings me to my last point, which is surround yourself in community,
Mhm.
build yourself a squad of other business owners that get you, that get what you're going through, that are
Yeah.
your cheerleaders, as well as your harsh truth business coaches without judgment.
Yeah.
It's really, really important, because also our roles as business builders, as brand builders, it can be very isolating.
Yeah.
Like, especially since the pandemic, a lot of people work remotely. Like, I'm in my office alone all day long.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to feel the presence of people that you know, that you could reach out to, that you can text, that you can hop on Slack with,
Yeah.
even for a brief check-in, or them helping you work through a problem you can't quite get a full vision on, is really
Yeah.
important.
It is. It's a huge component, I think, that's missing a lot in our kind of post-COVID era of everyone working at home. And which I love that, but that also does take away from the like group think, right? Of the positive parts of the group think, and like brainstorming and coming up with new ideas and bouncing things off of people. And I find that when I get stuck, it's like I just need to process it out with somebody, especially because I'm an external processor. And so I'm like, if I get too internal for too long, I'm like, I get so spinny in my head. I'm like, I don't even know which way is up. So I have to reach out and talk to people on Slack and go, here's my idea, or here's what I created, like rip it apart, just
Yeah,
someone else to bounce something off of, because I just don't think you are meant to, or people are not meant to do things in isolation. They're meant to do them in community.
agreed. We are very social animals,
Yeah.
and we seek connection, we seek belonging.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, we learned that very loudly during COVID.
Yeah. 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 That was a social experiment. We learned a lot about like isolation is not good for people long term, which we all knew, but I don't think we all realized quite like how much it affects every aspect of your life. And I think in business, it's the same. Like there's a lot of solopreneurs or small business owners, and even if they have a team, a lot of them are remote, right? Especially agency owners, right? They have a remote team, or maybe they have a couple people, but they might still feel alone and isolated kind of at the top, right? Like, okay, where are my other, CEOs and agency owners? And that's the kind of community like that I think more and more people need to join, is get in these groups and help build each other. I've seen agency owners, in the groups that we've been in, just really succeed when they like partnered up with someone or had a group of them,
Yes.
and done really well that way. And the ones that don't do as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough where I'm in different communities that, whether it's copywriting
Yeah.
or it's brand building, I'm in a couple communities that are for minority women.
Nice.
And then I also have a, a squad. There is a total of 4 of us, and we all are at different levels of building our businesses, but we all have that vision of where we're going. We
Yeah.
talk once a week on the phone, we're on a group text, and then once a quarter, we actually meet up for like a 2.5, 3-day retreat / business intensive.
Love
So
it.
accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that really, it does. At the end of the day, it helps you avoid burnout in your soul.
Yeah.
Because you're reminded, hearing one of your squad stories, what they're experiencing, where you're swapping notes and you're helping each other figure it out.
Absolutely. And I think one of the biggest antidotes to burnout is community. And I think that's a really good point that you brought up, and just all the different things of creating the SOPs, building a team around you, like not forgetting about the physical and mental aspects of being just a human and a business owner, and that release that you need, right? And then bringing community around it. Is there anything else that you want to add before we end?
I would just say, there's the little things that we hear a lot, right? Be sure to nourish your body.
Yes, that's a big one.
Right? A lot of times we forget. Be sure to hydrate beyond coffee. You can't drink coffee all day.
Yes.
And those moments where you really are feeling absolutely exhausted or you're feeling sick, instead of pushing through it, instead of doing that, it's really important to listen to your body and take that day or take that break, even if you believe it's too much.
Yeah.
You can live another day that way. And if you are not at your optimal space, how can you serve others?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, every time like I've had to reschedule a podcast or something because I had pneumonia or was sick. I mean, people are so generous with their, time and just like ability to understand that we're all human and we get sick, or, something comes up with a spouse or a partner or kids or whatever. And I have never received one like angry reply when I've had to do that. And I think it's just a good point to take care of yourself, because if you run yourself into the ground, you're probably going to run your business into the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, well, Beth, this was super fun. I love talking about all this kind of stuff. And I think you brought just some very practical wisdom for other agency owners to really glean from and hopefully integrate into their business and into their lives. Why don't you tell everyone where they can connect with you online?
Yeah. So you can go to my website, which is fortifiedbranding.com. I also am Beth Carr on LinkedIn. There's a lot of Beth Carrs, so look for Beth Carr attached to Fortified Branding.
Yes.
I'm also on I'm on Instagram as well as Facebook. And I would love to hear how I can help if you're at this place where you need to figure out, how do I go about SOPs, or how do I set boundaries?
Yeah, I love it. Well, go find Beth, because she's amazing at this. She's been doing it for a while. She knows what she's talking about. So thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
It was fun. And thank you everyone for listening to the Inbound Back Office podcast, brought to you by Inbound Back Office, white label, plug and play, staff augmentation and recruiting for your marketing agency. You can find Inbound Back Office at inboundbackoffice.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, which I did, I'm sure you did, take a minute, leave us a review, share it with other agency owners. They need this information and a good reminder to just learn how to be sustainable while you're scaling. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on our weekly episodes. Until next time.